Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Slight Edge Advantage. My name is Jeremy Torisk, and I am your host today. And today we've got a really great guest, and you're really going to like him because he embodies the Slight Edge Advantage. He wrote a new book called Renegades, and Renegades is all about being a rule breaker. So what is your Edge Advantage? Are you no, following the rules is fine. In a lot of places you have to. Life and death, of course, it depends on it. But as a business owner, you've got choices to make every single day. And the little things that we do in our business every day, every night, every evening when we lay our head down, we're thinking about tomorrow. What are those things that give you your slight edge advantage? Today, we're going to introduce you to Benj Miller. And let me tell you a little bit about him right now. And then we're going to bring him on and really get cooking on his new book. Meet Benj Miller, an authentic rule-breaking visionary with a wealth of entrepreneurial experience. He's dedicated to helping leadership teams get aligned, healthy, and wildly effective. Through his Systems and Soul framework, Benj capitalizes growth and drives game-changing breakthroughs. Please welcome Benj Miller. Boom.
That's a heck of an intro.
Thanks, Benj. How you doing, man?
Yeah, super excited. Even more, got that pump up intro going, gets the energy going. I love the intro and how the slight edge is what this book's about. Because if we can, shave a couple years of the hard knocks off of people's journey, that's what I'm all about.
You know, I always say, never do things alone. And I'm a solopreneur as it comes, but I've got books, I've got mentors, I've got friends, I've got peers. You know, I'm not afraid of following people and asking, how did you mess up before you got to where you are, so that I can maybe sidestep some of those minds.
That's it. That's it.
That's a huge advantage.
That is, yeah, it's more than a slight advantage. That's a huge advantage.
Yeah. So let's start really at the beginning and just spend just a few minutes and tell me about your entrepreneurial journey and then how that switched to become a coach. Because, you know, you and I had a lot of that in common. And yeah, I really love to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. So I'll give you the short, long story.
Reader's Digest.
Yeah, the Reader's Digest version. I was an accidental entrepreneur. So I think I was always an entrepreneur in my blood, but went and got a real job out of school. And that lasted about 2 years before I had a "I quit, you're fired" conversation with my boss. So different revisionist history, depending on who you talk to on that one.
Sure.
But I was in the creative space. And so it was before all the solopreneurship, but I just thought, man, if I could just replace my income and be able to work for myself, that would be the absolute coolest. And so that, I was like 23, 24.
All right, pretty young for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial house?
No, not at all. Nowhere close. My dad was a pastor and then went into HR, and no, not at all. But
that's a big jump. Pastor to HR. I guess he needed all that Jesus training to deal with people.
That it's all people. That's right. That's exactly right. He's great with people. So it was a great upbringing, but it was not. Well, I shouldn't say that. My mom's motto was mud and spit. And she took it from the story of Jesus at the well. And that's what he used to heal the blind man's eyes, is just what was there, the dirt and his spit. And so that was our motto growing up. Like, she would make our clothes. If we wanted something, we'd figure out a way to get it, but it was not the traditional way.
Where was that?
It's in the middle of a cornfield in Ohio.
Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm out on my own. That actually went pretty well. It's always hard getting started, but after a year or so, I found myself needing help. So I started hiring people to help me. I didn't even realize I had a business. I just started hiring people to help me.
Wow.
Fast forward about 5-6 years, we had a year with just massive growth, 300% growth. Small company, but we tripled in size in a year.
What was the business?
It still exists today under a different name, syrupmarketing.com.
Okay.
If you're interested.
Well, so it was, but it was creative.
Yeah. At that point, it was all brand, web design. We had gotten in that explosion. We had started software development and started producing
Wow.
a lot of apps. It was in the app craze, so we kind of rode that for a little while. But I made a decision at the end of that year that absolutely tanked our business. It was a short-sighted decision without really thinking through the consequences, and we were upside down really, really quick. That was a absolute low point in my entrepreneurial career. But man, if that affects your person, right? So
Oh my God.
it
Yeah.
can get dark real quick, and I found myself in that hole. And there were a couple things that helped me get out of it. One's way more personal. I'm glad to share, but it's just not relevant. The other one is my coach said, "Look, you've got three options. You either shut it down and go get a job like a normal person.
Yeah.
You slim this thing and make it small and easy, and you can manage that." He said, "Or you learn what it takes to run a business." And I was
Wow.
like, "Ooh, that hurt a little, right?" Because I already had a business, but I didn't know business. And that's when I began just reading everything I could, getting mentors,
Yeah.
studying, and I fell in love with the art and science of business building. So that was business one. I'm now on business 10.
Oh,
I caught the bug for sure, went on that journey. And along the way, some of these other businesses that I started, in hindsight, I realized I started them way more as the coach than the founder or the entrepreneur. So I might have had the idea, but I'd arrange the right talent and the operator and the brand and the
yeah.
customer and all that.
It's really,
So I
that's
kind
a good
of
head start.
I slid into coaching accidentally.
Right. You slid into coaching. I think, I'm 52 years old, and I think I don't remember what it is, something called slide up. I saw it on some sort of crime show, right? When you slide up and mess with someone. So you slid up to coaching.
I slid up to coaching. Absolutely.
So, and that's pretty funny because usually it's the opposite. People think, I like doing X, so let's make a business out of it. And then they try to be everything to the business, and then they need help and they throw out that ring. But you were like, no, I think I'm going to find the right people to do this business. And you started it that way, which is, if you got the means, you know,
Well, yeah, I didn't on the first one. I learned the hard way
yeah,
that bootstrapping past where like you need all the help, but you can't afford all the help is just I think it's the toughest place in business. I say the $1 million business is the hardest business to run
yes,
because
it grows the calluses though. It grows the biggest
yeah,
calluses that you have to learn those things because
yes,
you've got to understand what your people are going through on these decisions they're making before you can govern them and guide them through them to make sure that, hey, they're making these right choices, because you got to allow them to make these choices. But without those failures and those bad decisions you've made, you might allow other people who don't even have as much skin in the game make some bad decisions.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So it pays off to do it. I wouldn't say early and often, but definitely early. I should take my own advice. I'm going through that right now.
You know what? I am too. It's interesting. So now on number 10, and this is the one where I'm back in front leading the charge. I'm not in the coach seat, and it is humbling because you think you get so much smarter, but the game is hard. It is a hard game. You can't win the game out of your brain. You've got to grind through it.
What's funny too? I don't think it changes.
Yeah,
I think it's been the same since capitalism started. It's just figuring out your path, but the game is the game.
yeah,
It's all about psychology and human behavior. At the end of the day, we serve humans. Most of us
yep,
serve humans, and we do things for other humans, and they don't really change. We're all the same. It takes thousands of years to evolve. So the psychology behind getting your service or product to these people and having them look at you as ravenous fans doesn't change. Isn't that something that we just always struggle? But really, what are we struggling with, right?
Well, I think we're struggling with a false reality that we see on social media of these overnight successes. And they do happen. They do happen every once in a while.
Hey, that happened to me when I sold that business. I was an overnight success, 30 years in the making.
Right? How long were you in it?
30 years.
Yep, exactly. So we see that. Um, And we see people that do that, and we just miss the fact that you can't beat time. Like time, you can accelerate it by, making smart moves. You can elongate it by making dumb moves, but you can't beat time. Like, um, you mentioned ravenous fans. Well, you can't get a ton of referrals until you have ravenous fans. You can't have ravenous fans till you serve them well. You can't serve them well till you close your first customer. And you know what I mean? You can't cheat time.
Right. Yeah. The process is the process. Now, now the hard part is differentiating yourself. That's really the trick to all the businesses is how do you stand out,
Yeah. Yeah.
in my opinion.
Well, that's where I love what we get to do right now, because I was able to bring my brand positioning thinking into a world of business operating systems and business operating frameworks, and actually combine the two, because when they live separate, something's missing. We talk about having, you mentioned the name of the company, System and Soul, and we say that the soul side makes the systems matter, and the system side make the soul side.
So what is the soul side?
Okay, glad you asked. I get that often. Some people, it's innate. You kind of feel it, you sense it, but it's hard to put a definition on. So when we're talking about the soul side of the business, you mentioned it's all about people, right? It is all about people, and the people are the soul. But it's also the story that we're creating that they can find a role in. So their connectivity to the organization, how they feel about the organization. The culture that we develop. Like, you're a visionary of your business. You get to decide the experience that your employees have working there. But most
Yes.
people, in the rush, they don't take the time to actually get intentional and say, well, if somebody was going to write the ideal Glassdoor review on my business, what would I want it to say? Great.
Right.
How do you make that true? So we have a method for that. And then our approach to leadership development, very, very different than what most organizations spend their time thinking about and doing. It's based on a lot of research, but it really comes down to leadership is 77% about who you are when you show up, more than what you do in the room.
So I think that that conveys to the client side too. So the soul side, Peter Vargas talks about there's three things that people kind of buy. They buy uh, health, they buy finance, or they buy relationships. So if you can help them with their health, with their finance, or their relationships, you could do that. And there's a 5-step process to doing it. It starts with the story and getting to their head, and then getting to their heart, and
Yeah,
then empathy, and then making a relationship, showing them that you've been there, and then closing that back again with their head. That's the soul.
it is.
It's all encompassed by that. It sounds like to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we use another word that most people don't. It's a great word, but a lot of people don't use it. It's just the ethos. What's the
Yes,
ethos of your
ethos.
companies? Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Hold on, I'm on the wrong screen there. Bam, got to make it rain on that one. Um, Ethos, and that's a good. It's what it's a differentiator. it's, you know,
Yes. So that's we talk about being sticky, being attractive, and the attractivity of the organization is going to pull the right people to you. But here's the catch that most people are afraid of: is a magnet is only as strong as it is willing to repel. And so we have to put a stake in the ground and know who we're not for and who we're not a good fit for, both employees and customers, in order to attract the ones that are the right fit.
you got to bold on that one. It's so important because all the time, what I hear is, "Who's your customer? Everyone can use this product."
Right. Which means nobody's attracted to it.
Yes, because the magnet's weak.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
right.
I love it. I love that a lot. So let's get to the book. All
All
right,
right.
that's the meat and the potatoes here. Renegades.
Yeah.
I love the name. One of my favorite Stick songs, Tommy Shaw. Uh, what made you write it, and how has the journey been becoming an author? Is this the first time?
It's my second time, but the first time was really, really easy because it was kind of a 30-page book with a
More of a
lot
pamphlet.
of no, it was like a workbook behind that.
I like that.
and I already had a lot of the content like saved up from over the years. So it was pretty painless and to put it together. It was fun. It was a good experience. This one was a lot harder. I actually wrote this book 3 times and threw it away. It wasn't bad. I just was like, I felt bad for anybody that had to read it. Like, I'm like, this is just not, there's a million business books out there.
Yeah.
And I read a book, you can see a bunch of them here behind me, called Fecht Perfection by James Victore. And the dude is a advertising kind of super charismatic, eccentric kind of guy. And he just broke all the, if there's unsaid book writing rules, he broke them all
I would like
in
to
this book.
can you send me that so I can put that in the description?
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
if you want to hold it up too.
Yeah, man, I'll hold it up too. It's one of my favorites. Like, I think every kid should read this before they go off to college. It's really about finding yourself, which is a great book. Anyway, so I'll show you. He breaks all the rules in here, like changes the fonts, adds all these
Looks kind of
pictures.
familiar.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna get a
So
sneak peek. So
I'm like, well, if I could write a book like that,
yeah,
and just tell my story in a way that's, shapes it in a practical, that could be fun. And really the theme is more than just my story, because it's the story that I see in a lot of my clients that I work with and
yeah.
coach. And it's the where they get stuck, where they feel the pain, is in what we call the founder's gap. And the founder's gap lives in between being a renegade founder and being a renegade leader. And Jeremy, I'll tell you the biggest thing that I want to solve with this book is the journey shouldn't be from renegade founder to leader or to CEO or to something else that feels sterile, and you have to lose your identity, you lose your wiring, you lose your gifting. You read too many Harvard Business Review articles that tell you exactly how to do it and who you should be. And so I don't want you to lose your renegade, because your renegade is a gift that you're bringing to the world, and your organization needs it, whether you feel like they do or not. But there's a few shifts that we have to make in order to go from a renegade founder to a renegade leader.
So you said it's so funny you said that, because I'm inundated with there's 4 Harvard Business Review emails in my inbox right now.
They're not bad. They're usually good.
But you're right. People can get too deep into the wrong weeds.
Yes,
absolutely. And you got to know what that's really another part of the slight edge advantage, where to spend your time. You've got to look at that stuff, because listen, it's Harvard Business Review, but really, how much time do you need to spend on it?
Yep.
So, so I thought that was funny, because no one's ever mentioned. My mentor Ray Leon told me, start reading this. All right, and I get the Wall Street Journal. I get it weekly, so I get it delivered on Saturdays, and I like the tactical paper. Right, so I never read it daily, but I like the paper on Saturday.
Yeah.
I usually read it Sunday, and read the Harvard Business Review. But no one's ever said that besides you, and so I just thought that was interesting.
Well, I don't mean to pick on them. It's a blanket statement of all the people out there telling you who. One of my clients had a professional coach. She made the jump from COO to CEO and got this coach, and he kept talking to her about being more presidential. And it just made me want to throw up. I'm like, you got to the position that you're in because of who you are.
What kind of business was it anyway?
I don't want to give away too much secrets on that one.
But does it does it correlate? Like, is he just talking about state of mind? And we don't need to shit on other people.
No, it wasn't it was not state of mind. It was, what kind of handbag you have when you show up, what kind of car you drive, what all the peripheral things that, in this guy's mind was presidential. I'm like, no, they don't need a president. They need a leader.
Yeah.
And they elected you because of who you are. Don't change anything.
Exactly. Yeah. So to founder's gap.
Yeah.
The founder, I guess, would that be considered more the visionary, to kind of go back to rocket fuel? I don't know if you
read that. Yeah. Usually it's that visionary founder, because what we're talking about, and I actually love, people wrestle with the word visionary, but just to put it in simple terms, somebody who can see what isn't in the future and bring it back to today. Right. And that's what a Renegade's doing. They're seeing that the world isn't as it should be or as it could be.
Or only one way.
Yes. Right. So let's go try this. Let's go do this. Can we do it better? Can we do it faster? Can we have more fun doing it? Whatever it is. And so but they run into problems, right? That Renegade, just like my story where I started hiring all these people to help me, at some point I become the bottleneck. I become my own worst enemy in the business. And so all the things we had learned up to that point, there's shifts that we have to make. So the first one we talk about, well, there's 6 shifts, but before we even get into them, the thing that I make sure everybody knows is that when we're talking about this, you've got to deal with your own stuff first. If you're bringing your baggage in, your chip on your shoulder, then that's going to bleed all over the organization. So you've got to deal with your own stuff first. And we've got a little methodology to unpack that and work your way through that. And then we talk about, it's all about the team. You mentioned this earlier. You're like, I've got mentors, I've got peers, so we list them out. Like, if you're going to build an army, here's the roles that you need to fill out. You don't have to do it all overnight, but you need to have if you are a renegade, you're going to need an operator. Sometimes we call them a regulator. You got the renegade and the
field general. I call we were a national company, so we had field generals out.
Yes, 100%.
I saw like Napoleons out there on their horse,
and they are thinking about executing the plan. Yeah. They're thinking about the people. An EA, an admin, somebody who can multiply your time, game changer. Obviously, I'm a big believer in coach. I always have a coach, if not 2 or 3 in different areas of my life, because I believe in it. If you want to grow, invest in it.
Yeah.
You need a peer group because you aren't alone, but it's really easy to feel like it. And then the last one, and that's the big one, is really building out a team of healthy, aligned leadership within your organization. So it's no longer dependent on you. And that is where a lot of these shifts come in, is shifting from kind of a me-centric to a them-centric. Not even us, but like, how do you start to abstract yourself from the leadership of the company so that the company, this is where like so many people get messed up in their head. They're like, well, if I do that, then the company doesn't need me. And it's like,
that's the purpose. At the end of the day, you really don't, it shouldn't need you.
Well,
you should be
it depends. It depends. If you're trying to get out, then it shouldn't need you at all.
Or even if you want to stay in, you can be a contributor, but it shouldn't need you. If you can't leave for
that's a good way to say it. Yes.
That's not effective.
But I think that they miss that their ultimate contribution is when they're not needed, because then they can go do the next idea, the next customer, the next relationship. They can keep moving to the future while the organization's working on the present.
Right. Exactly. So that's a good thing. The need, nobody needs a needy. Yeah. And it's the same thing with people. You should have a bench, because you shouldn't need anyone either. It works both ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of firing your worst client.
Mm-hmm.
We
did that every year. Every year we went through that exercise.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. So what about these ethos? I'd like to kind of get to that, because from what I read, and I'm a horrible reader. I'm a great skimmer. And so some of the things that jumped out to me, and I used to fly for 10 years, every twice a week, Monday and come home Thursday. And that was my favorite because I read so much. But especially now, I don't allow myself. I have the time. I don't allow it.
Yeah.
To read as much as I would like to. But let's talk about these ethos, because that was it was interesting.
Well, a lot of times what happens is the organizations that we build early on look a lot like the founder, right?
Yes.
So each one of the shifts that we talk about in the book, and we're talking about the 5th shift right now, this ethos choice. But it starts with the world telling us, don't make a scene. Like that, we grow up in school, fall in line, sit in your desk, do what you're told, answer the questions, raise your hand. Don't make a scene. Some of our parents even told us that, like, don't make a scene, right? But there's something in the Renegade that's like, I gotta be me. I cannot give up my soul, my who I was created to be for the sake of these rules that exist in
In
society.
other people's perspectives, really, is what it is.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that that's really what it is you just don't take anything as a given. Like I'm going to explore. So when you start to make the shift, that gets us in trouble because if the whole organization just looks like me, then it can't grow beyond me. And
Right.
so, and it doesn't include anybody else. So we've got to shift to we got to do we, right?
Yeah.
We've got to do we. And it starts with that leadership team saying, who are we now as a leadership team? And so the way that we take people through that is the first one is we use a tool from Marty Niemeyer called the onlyness statement. And it's really, really simple. It's like the Slight Edge Advantage is the only blank podcast that fill in the blank gives you an advantage in your business career. So it's a very simple tool, but it's very clear and it sets you up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Help with your clarity.
Yeah, and when Marty wrote this, he's an ad guy as well, and he was very much thinking in terms of value proposition and differentiator in the market. When we're working with our clients on this, we're having them think more of. You remember Braveheart when William Wallace is out in front of his army about to go to battle, and it's a bunch of misfits, and they're all on horses, and he's going back and forth with his pump up speech, and it always struck me that as they panned the army, you'd have, half of them with swords, some bows, some spears, and then every like 20 horses in the front row, you'd have some poor schmuck that's there carrying a flag.
Right.
Right.
We call those the first to die.
That I would not want that job. So why would they put somebody in that situation? Well, it was so important for everyone else behind them to know what they were fighting for, that they were willing to put it on a flag to run it into battle. So
And that guy was willing to give it all to be that flag banner.
Yes, on behalf of whatever was on that flag.
Or he had a really sore butt and didn't want to ride a horse.
Yep. Yeah. So that's where we talked about it earlier with the magnet, but you have to have the guts to be the only one in a certain segment. And then you've got to make,
but I like it because in the book, it's two separate things. It's have the guts and be the only.
Yeah.
No. And it is really about that. It's two separate things.
Yeah.
Because you got to have the guts, and that doesn't come easy. It's courage, just like courage. Courage is not the lack of fear. It's having the fear and doing something anyway. And so having, what do they call that? Intestinal fortitude, right?
Yeah.
It's not very common. And to be the only, you've got to develop that confidence in yourself and what you're representing. And I think goes back to, what do you stand for? And so that clarity, you need to have this. So these are kind of in order.
They are. They build on themselves. Yes. Yes, very much so. The other part of the ethos is the values of the organization. We don't have to spend a bunch of time on there. There's a million things. I think most people don't really use their values well, but that's a whole separate conversation. That's why it says values are tied to that, make it hurt. That comes from Lencioni. He's like, man, if you're going to have values, they're going to inflict pain into your organization, into your decision making. So if you say you have values, but they don't hurt at some point, then I would check yourself. But the last thing is, and we pulled this from, I'm just a collector of good ideas, Jeremy, nothing original.
Hey, we call that R&D around here. Rip off and duplicate.
But we use Jim Collins' hedgehog concept that he talked about in Good to Great in chapter 5, about how organizations were able to go from good to great. And the common thing that they had is that they had a hyper focus, what he called a hedgehog from an old fable in the 1800s. And they knew the answer to three things. What are we deeply passionate about as an organization? What can we be the best in the world at? And what drives our economic engine? And what this does for organizations is it creates almost boundaries to play in. Right. So we don't need all the rules. We don't need to know all the right answers, but we need to know where our boundaries are. And so going from me making all the decisions because I know all the right answers as the founder to, hey, you go make some of these decisions on your own. But here's our onlyness statement, here's our values, and here's our hedgehog. That's the game we're playing. That's where you've got to make those decisions.
We call it definite. Napoleon Hill calls it definitive of purpose or definitive of clarity, that clear value. And values do change, by the way, as you grow leadership teams, as you grow people, as you grow in organizations, your values are allowed to shift.
Yeah.
And they do shift. The principles are typically what stay rock solid and don't change. But from the value standpoint, if it does hurt, and if it doesn't hurt, it's okay to change those values so that they do start hurting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people think those values and principles don't change, but they do. Values do. Principles don't. Principles are what you land on when the value makes you make a decision. Then you go back to principle, and that's that's your kind of your guider.
That's good.
So I'm excited about the book. I'm excited. When do you think the release date is looking like?
We've got a landing page up, so you can go sign up and find out the exact date, which I don't even know, but it's coming in September.
Okay, that's pretty soon.
It's very soon. Yep.
Where is it going to be available?
Strictly on Amazon.
Self-publishing?
We are. Yeah. We did a kind of a hybrid on the first one, learned a lot, and decided to not even shop it.
Hey, you got to come down here, do the audio version here in studio. We'll hang out.
That'd be awesome. I do need to do that. It's on my list of things to do.
You got a great voice. It'll be good. So systemandsoul.com/renegades is at this bottom right now. The LinkedIn is Benj-Miller-Business Growth Impact Framework Coaching. It's moving fast. It's a lot. Just click it. Benj Miller. There's not a lot of Benj.
That's right.
In LinkedIn for the audio guys listening to this. And gals. We have a very large number of women who just love this show. So don't mean to exclude you, but Benj, what's next? What is next? You're getting literally done with a chapter of your life writing this book for the third time. It's good enough to release. You're about to release it. Very exciting. But I know if you're anything like me, you already have something on the peripheral.
Well, I wasn't expecting you to ask that or talk about it,
but we don't need to go deep into it.
Of course there is. We've been developing an assessment for organizations that's around the 6 dimensions of compensation. So when we talk about compensation, we tend to go to salary and benefits and maybe some peripheral stuff, but it's all financial. And what we've found through our research is that there's actually 6 dimensions, 5 other dimensions that matter to people for their compensation: emotional, physical, spiritual, psychological, and mental. And so if we can, there's 2 parts of this that are really important. I want to know, if you worked for me, Jeremy, I'd want to know, how do you feel like you're compensated in those 6 areas? So we have a little assessment where you can kind of backdoor questions, find out how they feel about those 6. But then the thing that most people miss is the second part, which is, I want to know which of those are most important to you.
The witty, we call that in the sales funnel.
Yes.
Important to you.
That's exactly what it is. So like the example that we've been testing this for a while. And the first time, my operator actually gives me a review every quarter. So I filled out the assessment along with a couple other tools we have. And when we got to it, it was like super high score. Okay. Really low. She was freaked out. She was like, we got to do something about this. You're going to leave. You're going to get distracted. Right. I'm like, what are you talking about? And what we realized is those 2 that were on the bottom, I don't even care about those.
Right.
I'm in this business for the other 2. I'm here for something else. And if we don't know that about our employees.
Well, I think that's the most important part. That's part of the equation. The other part is it a systematic thing? Are you indicative of everyone else? And so if that's important to someone else and they're not doing anything about it, that's when it's a problem for the others,
So now you're getting into where we're even going in the future with this. Hope to go in the future is, different companies are going to have a different compensation profile. And so if we can test how well you align as a potential employee to that company, then we can be making sure that we're matching companies that compensate in the way that they feel most fulfilled.
Almost like a part of DEI, really. For what's important to them to work for a company, it really reinforces the retention.
Yeah.
It's not all about money. There's we talked
Big
about
time.
books. There's millions of books. There's a lot of studies on it, but when you can quantify it in an easy way, and then get that information back, that's where it's important. And as the companies grow, you have no choice, because you get to the point where you have this many people. Just the average of the law of large numbers tell you you're going to need to have boxes checked for each one of those.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
right. That's right.
so that's great. I look forward to really seeing how that progresses, and doing work with you in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. When we launch that, we'll come back and talk about it.
Absolutely. So, anything else? Parting words for the audience?
Just if you take nothing else away, just you don't have to lose yourself to be the leader that you want to be. And there are some tools out there, some shifts that can help you really elevate yourself and elevate the dignity of every single person that works for you at the same time.
I'll say that. Fire. That's awesome. Thank you, Benj Miller. Renegades is the book, available later this month, September 2023. For listening to this after, go to Amazon right now and get it, and then give an honest review. Really important when you buy from Amazon. Buy the book and then give an honest review. Hopefully it's 5-star and you love it and everything, but really that's the big maker when we do these self-publishing things. We need your help. So, Benj, stick around for a second. I want to take you out. I want to say goodbye to the audience. I want to tell you a proper goodbye, but I want to ask you, what are you doing? Today's your day. Today's the last day of your bad habits, right? Start changing these things. These are the little things that are holding you back. The slight edge advantage gives you the momentum you need to experience greatness that you deserve. So I want you to write in the comments below, what are the bad habits you're going to break? Put them in the comments. I'll reach out to you, and maybe we'll get you on one of these podcasts, and we'll talk about how you're going to go about doing that, and give yourself the slight edge advantage that you deserve. Thanks for joining us today. We'll talk again real soon. Bye-bye.